Helldivers 2 has been out for a while now, but there's a lot more depth to the game than some might realize even this far after its release. With that in mind, in today's video we'll be going over a whole bunch of tips, tricks, and just other items of trivia that you might not know about Helldivers 2. If you pick up something useful from this video that you didn't know, drop it a like and subscribe for more Helldivers videos just like this one. Let's get straight into it. The spear can be used to destroy automaton fabricators, but unlike other support weapons, this can be done from any angle and doesn't require you to fire a round into the exhaust vent. If you're looking to clear spawners quickly, it can save you a whole lot of fighting and buy you precious time on higher difficulties. Many Helldivers opt to run the impact grenade, and I can't say I blame you because they're fantastic, but if you haven't tried it already, give the stun grenade a try. This is capable of locking enemies in place to provide the opportunity for an easy kill shot. This even affects chargers, berserkers, and hulks. Even one person running this on your team can be a massive help in a lot of situations. Essential personnel evacuations are actually much easier than you might first think. Drop your squad at the edge of the map and have them draw attention to themselves by allowing the enemy to call in reinforcements. Meanwhile, one single member of your team equipped with EAT launchers, EMS mortars, autocannon sentries, and cluster strikes will complete the objective quietly. You can of course bring a different kit if you'd like to, but the example given will lock up patrols using the EMS mortar, buying you valuable time to take them out before they can call in a breach, and the EAT launcher will give you what you need for large targets in a pinch. The same personnel evacuation missions are where you can find the most samples in Helldivers. The map is smaller, meaning any spawns tend to have a huge amount of samples in one place. We don't have to alter our strategy from the one mentioned in the last tip, but it's worth knowing for those that are kiting around the enemy that they should be on the lookout for massive sample payoffs on their way around the map. When using the Patriot Walker, did you know that you can actually stop and stun a charger without damage to the mech? The Patriot can be an incredibly handy tool to have on terminated missions, but chargers pose a very real threat. However, if you turn your mech so that the right side of it is facing towards an oncoming charger, they'll simply hit the Gatling gun mounted to the side of the mech, become stunned, and bounce right off without any damage to you or your weaponry. Now, you probably already know that reloading early discards valuable ammunition, but what you might not know is that the majority of weapons will reload slightly faster if you reload before you empty the magazine completely. You can tell when you're running low on rounds without even checking the magazine counter in the bottom left, because you'll start to fire red tracer rounds toward the end of your magazine. This is your sign to consider a reload unless you absolutely need those last few rounds. Laying prone will dramatically reduce the amount of damage you receive from explosions. Sprinting, however, actually increases the damage taken from explosions, so if you hear the sound of a hell bomb activating and you're a little too close for comfort, hit the deck and hope for the best. Shout out to my teammate Rug for putting up with me whilst we tested this one. Yeah, he's not going to be in Helldivers 3. Enemies have health pools for each limb, not just a total health pool. As such, with heavy class enemies, you'll want to focus fire on one limb in particular. Splitting your shots will simply mean that you're not getting the most value for your ammunition that you're expending. Learn those weak spots and aim for the same one as a squad. Impact grenades and the grenade launcher support weapon are actually effective against Bile Titans. If you hit a Bile Titan with a rail cannon strike, it usually takes just 2 well-placed impact grenades to take them down. Aim for the exposed area caused by the rail cannon strike. With a grenade launcher, however, you can aim for the bile sac at the rear of the Bile Titan. A single grenade will destroy it and remove its ability to spew bile entirely, and if you do this after a rail cannon strike, it should kill the Bile Titan outright with a single hit. There's an enemy Terminid type that we might be able to expect to see further down the line, and the developers have been teasing its existence. This huge bug is known as the Hive Lord, which was actually in the first Helldivers game as a boss type encounter. These massive worms tunnel under the planet's surface and create tunnels for bug hives. You can find what look to be corpses or perhaps moltings of these bugs when on missions, and we can see tunnels in the more recent Termicide Tower missions, which suggest we're likely to see them in the not too distant future. You can actually punch a hunter with a melee attack as it leaps towards you to interrupt it and stop yourself from taking damage. This will take some practice, and obviously if you've got ammo to spare, sometimes it's better just to shoot them in the face. But if you're reloading or can't get enough shots in quick enough, this tip could save your life in a pinch. Just be prepared to die a few times while you're learning the timing for this one. If you're on the lookout for samples, spore spewers often have clusters of them underneath them. Destroy the overgrown fungi from a distance, then go in and scoop up your reward like it were an apple tree in autumn. If you find that you're dying to automaton devastators, defense towers, tanks, or even the odd rocket launcher equipped regular robot, you might already know that explosive resistance on your armor can be incredibly useful for reducing damage dealt from these enemies. However, most of the armor this is available on is heavy class armor, and you might not want to sacrifice that much movement. If that's the case, keep an eye out for the B-24 Enforcer and the FS-34 Exterminator. These two armors are only available on the Superstore, so you'll need to check it regularly, but these two armors are medium class and still come with explosive resistance. You can actually use the minimap to identify the locations of certain points of interest. For example, an artillery gun can actually be seen on the minimap itself if you want to go for that first. This can also apply to other structures like radar stations or bunkers, which can be spotted on the map occasionally, so it's worth having a look when you first land on a mission. Did you know that in the tutorial you play at the very start of the game, there's a very, very literal sign? Remember this? Well, the wordage "see you on the other side" is a lot more serious than you might think. There's a planet just beside Super Earth in the Altus sector called Clen Darth 2, which, if you're a fan of Starship Troopers, might sound familiar. That's because in the first and only film worth watching from the franchise, the homeworld of the bugs is called Clen Dathu. Hopefully we can expect an Easter egg or two should we end up fighting on that planet's surface. Recovering stamina happens slowest when you're standing. It's slightly quicker when you're crouched and fastest when you're prone. Movement doesn't affect your stamina regen, so hitting the deck for a few seconds and crawling can be a good strategy if you're looking for a quick boost. On a similar token, using a stim will not only refill your health bar, but also gives you a full bar of stamina too, which can be used to great effect if you want to cover more ground quickly. Here's one that's just a little bit of a tidbit for you with some lore thrown in. The Terminids provide Super Earth with a precious element when they decompose. This is used to fuel the Galactic War. That element is known as Element 710, which might seem unsuspecting, but when you flip that upside down and reverse it, you get what seems to spell oil, which honestly is just hilarious. Thanks to a surprisingly scientific study completed by Reddit users Gergination, Psyker101, and Lex Locatelli, we know a lot more about enemy spawns, patrols, and how they are manipulated by our actions. I'm not going to go over the full study because it's absolutely massive, but there's a few things you should know. So, patrols spawn more often at higher difficulties, and this is proven in the study, but more interestingly, the closer you or your team are to a primary or secondary objective, an enemy outpost or the extraction point, patrols are even more likely to spawn at up to a 50% more frequent rate. At 100 meters away from any of these points of interest, you won't affect spawn rates, but as you get closer, you'll increase the rate a patrol comes your way, so take out any enemies biting at your heels before closing the gap to your objective. The same study also found that once you've cleared out 50% of enemy outposts on the map, that being the collections of bug holes or fabricators, you'll start to increase the spawn rate of enemy patrols. So if you don't need the requisition slips, it can actually be better just to ignore the outposts in favor of facing less resistance. Really different to what you'd expect and definitely counterintuitive in my opinion, but that's how it works and it can be good to know your options. Lastly, completing the primary objective will drastically increase the spawn rate of patrols, so much so that by completing the primary objective, you're bringing the spawn timer between patrols down to 25% of whatever the base timer is for your chosen difficulty. For example, on Helldive difficulty, level 9, the base spawn rate is around 110 seconds. Once you've taken out the primary objective, this plummets to just 27 seconds. So for the easiest various missions, the study was able to deduce that the primary objective should always be completed last. Now, like I said, there's a whole lot more in that study that's worth knowing if you're up for a deep dive. I'd be here covering it for hours if I really went into detail, but Lex Locatelli also did a video on this on their YouTube, which I'll leave linked in the description below with a link to the full Reddit post too. So that's it from me in this one, folks, but hopefully you found something in this video that you didn't know about Helldivers before watching. There's always more stuff to learn about this game, so if there's anything I didn't mention in this one that you think others would benefit from, drop it in the comments below and do your part in the war for galactic peace. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.